Hello? Okay, here we
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yeah, okay. So I told him not to give me wired mics because I would trip, so I'm glad I didn't trip. Um, so 10 tonight, we're doing a Fireside with Mohammad from Ideogram. So, Mohammad, let's start off easy. Can you introduce yourself and your company?
Sure, yeah. I hope you guys are not too tired. My name is Mohammed. I'm co-founder and CEO of Ideogram. We define it as a visual communication platform that uses generative AI to help everybody become more creative. And one of the first products is text to image. You write your prompt, and then you get images back. And we train our own AI models and really trying to distill more creativity into the world.
Cool, so let's take a step back. Tell me, before this, you were at Google. So, A, what did you learn at Google that you're applying now? And B, why did you decide to leave to start a startup?
Yeah, maybe a couple disclaimers. One is we haven't built a successful business yet. We're not profitable. So whatever I say, take it with a grain of salt. And then also, if I talk too much, interrupt me. Let's keep this interactive. Sure. Yeah, so I was at Google for 7 years, a couple years in the Bay Area. Then I moved back to Toronto. I was in Jeff Hinton's group. Basically, we were just pushing the boundary of what's possible with AI, trying to think about the future of technology, the future products. And the last couple years that I was at Google, we saw the potential in this new family of models called diffusion. I don't know how many people have heard of diffusion models. A co-founder of mine, Jonathan, actually wrote the very first paper on diffusion models when he was at UC Berkeley. We saw it very early on and saw the potential, kind of help build the technology. We also saw the potential in text to image, using text as a way of controlling graphics design, image creation and editing. And we started building a product in the space, sort of more research in the space. We introduced this model called Imagine when we were at Google. It was all bottom up and research oriented, but it got to the point that we felt like this needs to be turned into a product, and there's a huge opportunity, but that was really hard to do as part of a big corporation, and so the rest is basically we started a company.
So you were doing the research at Google.
That's right.
How do you protect, I got totally off script, how do you protect yourself when you leave so you can actually use the basics of research? Like, Google probably says, hey, you're working this, there's a patent. So, like, did you have a conversation saying, hey, we're leaving to start a startup? Or how did that actually go? Like, are you just walked out the door?
We weren't very explicit about what we are trying to do next. That said, like, a lot of the technology was developed outside of Google and our group. Like I said, diffusion models were introduced from Jonathan at UC Berkeley. There was actually parallel work at OpenAI. They were also working on text-to-image. We were also working on text-to-image. They scooped us with DALL-E 2 project and then released our own version. It was better in many respects. But basically, it's very hard to really pinpoint to any specific thing that we did. It's more like a community of researchers coming up with these incremental improvements and building them all. So I don't know. I mean, Google has been very friendly with us. We are a big customer of them now. And we're a customer of Google Cloud. So they seem friendly for now, at least.
Yeah, well, I guess as you're giving them the good revenues, they don't care. So, yeah, you mentioned DALL-E 2, right? Like, there's a bunch of different companies. So explain what happened. You leave Google. You know you want to start this. It takes a lot of compute to do this. So did you raise money right away? How did you go do that? How did you get the initial, research or like initial traction or product to get out to market?
Right. So this is December of 2022, and we are all first-time founders. I'm sure there are many first-time founders in the room, and we had no idea how funding works. Had no idea what the big VC firms are. I guess we just started from scratch. I do remember one of the first pitches we had was for Sequoia Capital. It's kind of funny that we started with Sequoia, and it went really horribly in that somehow when I connected my monitor to the laptop, it kind of turned off audio, so I couldn't hear anybody. And people were asking questions during the pitch.
So was this a remote pitch?
It was a remote pitch, yes. All of our fundraising has been remote, but this is kind of end of COVID, right? So I think everybody was used to it, and yeah, so I couldn't hear questions, and then people were started laughing, and I was like, "Why are you guys laughing?" And then I audioed in, and there was a really horrible echo.
So tip for fundraising: make sure that your audio visual works,
Right.
and that you have
Yeah,
good
maybe
connection.
that's the
So end of 22. At this point, I think, like you said, there's DALL-E 2.
right.
There's a Mid-Journey starting to emerge.
That's right.
How do you differentiate yourself? How do you enable yourself to actually raise money and compete?
Right. I mean, I can tell you more about Ideogram maybe, and then
That will
I
help.
don't know if you want to look at the historical lens or if you want to talk about where we
Either.
are today. One area that we're focusing on is graphic design, and basically the thinking is, so the product, the way I define product is if Pinterest and Canva were to have a baby, that's Ideogram. And then think of the workflow in the age of AI, how simpler and more intuitive that can be versus all the templates on Canva, and how higher quality the output can be versus template-based design. So that is Ideogram. Like the quality of the output can be really stellar, like improving every day. We're going to launch a new model. You're going to be really shocked at how high quality design can become. And this is just the beginning. But then the beauty is the user interface is still very simple. And so one of the key technology differentiation we have is the ability to produce good looking text as part of the image. And when you think of design, text is actually a core part of design. It's kind of funny, we start from text, then we generate images, but then images are not enough for visual communication, and somehow text adds a lot of value. When you think of all of the logos, when you think of all of the marketing, advertising material, they all have text in them. And so how to integrate text into image beautifully is actually a core part of graphics design, and that's what we're focusing on, kind of imagining the future workflow for image creation, editing, especially graphics design, and also think of video, right? Think of video templates that exist inside graphics design software, how high quality the video output can become, and think of a much more interesting visual content in the world. We can add more beauty to the world, and that's really exciting.
So yeah, I've noticed I've played with your tool and a bunch of other ones. You actually have text that I can read, which
That's
is pretty good. So, but how do you get the word out? How do you get users? Because I guess you can build the best model, but eventually you have to win, or you have to have the right users. So how are you going about building awareness in this market?
That's right. So I guess one thing to note is we're still very early, right? And think of it as the early days of graphical user interfaces. Like, we have a text box, but that's not enough for graphics design. We still need to design the buttons and the menu, and like, how is it that you can control the output? The contrarian view that we have is actually text should be part of the image and be generated together with the image as opposed to being a separate layer. So this layer is actually a core part of all of graphics design software. We say, actually, oh, wait a second, do we even need layers if everything can be intuitively modified? And then it actually simplifies the pipeline to generate text and image all together. Now, back to your question on go-to-market, I do remember we had the urge to release our first product. Yeah. And the question of timing it and how to launch it. From the early days, we decided to have our own front end and user experience outside of Discord. A lot of the AI products are inside Discord, but we had a firm belief that to keep it easy and simple, it needs to be outside of Discord. So my grandparents can also use Ideogram, right? That's kind of a vision.
Your grandparents aren't on Discord?
No, unfortunately, they are not around anymore. But basically, that's the concept.
Sorry. Asshole question of the night.
But basically, we wanted to do our front end. We were trying to hire a front end engineer, and we are 5 or 6 people at this point. Nobody knows how to do React. We didn't trust AI to write our React. And so our CTO, William, learned React and wrote our first user interface, and it really sucked. So then we finally found I mean, if you guys are founders, you know how hard it is to find the first engineers to join you, and also how hard it is to kind of hear feedback on some of the candidates that are very close to hiring, and the feedback kind of indicates that this person is not a good fit, but you feel like you really need that engineer. My advice is like, don't lower the bar. Like, just
Did you lower the bar?
we didn't lower the bar. And so
Okay.
that was the tough part. That like we had to wait, and like William kept improving his UI, but it wasn't cutting it. So we finally hired a front-end engineer, and he said, I want to throw all of this code into trash, and I want to start from a new design. Anyway, so it's kind of tough because you want to release a product that's marketable, but you also want to ship fast. So I think figuring out the exact timing is kind of tough. We didn't engage with any marketing or PR firm. To this date, we haven't done so yet, maybe at some point.
Yeah.
But basically, we just focused on our differentiation, which is putting text into images. And I think the product was simple and easy to use. It wasn't perfect, but it was a much more straightforward user experience than anything else on the market. And the combination of ease of use in the user experience as well as differentiation in finally somebody solved the text problem. Like, the text wasn't perfect, not as good as what we have today, but those kind of
So
helped us get the word out and word of mouth.
So I guess there's a subset of customers looking for better text.
Basically,
So I do want to open it to the audience. I'm going to do 2 other questions before I do.
Right.
One is you talked a bit about hiring. You know, the market's softened a bit for engineers, but I imagine in the space you're competing in, engineers are still scarce. So
Right.
how do you convince them to join you without having to pay like ridiculous amount of money?
So I guess part of our philosophy is we want to keep the company small. Right now we have about 15 people. I guess it's 15 full-time, 2 interns, but we want to kind of keep it at around 20. I guess I've seen the political nightmare of a big organization, so we want to kind of see how far we can push with a small team, and because of that, we can only go with A+ players and really have to keep the bar high. I think it's become easier now for us to hire than like the early days. I guess if your question is early days, I do think there are a couple things. One is not everybody is the right fit for startups. I do think when people start negotiating on like every penny and asking too many questions, that may actually be an indication that it's not the best fit. And I do think really it's hard to compare big tech compensation and job versus founding your own company versus joining a startup. So in my experience, people who have a clear picture of, okay, they don't want to start their own company, they don't want as much stress and as high risk position, and they don't want to be part of a big tech because they want to move fast. So those are the kind of target audience that you want to talk to.
So it's getting the right engineers. Instead of asking another question, I want to be conscious of time. Let's open it to the audience. Can we get some mics out there and get some questions? Any questions?
Hi there. Why text? What's the vision and passion for text? You could have done anything. Why text?
You mean why text in the images?
Why ideogram and text? You could have done anything. Why this area? A personal question.
So I guess the reason I'm asking, there are 2 questions to ask. Why to use text as the controlling force for design and generating images? That's one question. And another question is, why trying to render text as part of images?
No. Why did you choose text out of all the other things, the amazing things that
Oh, you mean
you've
why?
seen? Yeah.
I guess we do images more than text.
Why do you choose a text business and not like some video text?
So he's saying why image and text instead of doing video or the next?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So actually, we did video before. We did video at Google. There's this project called Imagine Video. I think it was the first diffusion-based video model, and you should go and check out the website. It was a state-of-the-art for a while, and that is 3 years old now. The reasoning is we think image is the foundation for all types of media, including video and 3D. In order to build the best video model, in order to build the best 3D model, we need to build the best image model. Moreover, we know a lot of the learnings will transfer from image to video and 3D. So we can keep the cost down and do a lot of exploration in image, and we think that's going to be transferring to video very quickly. In addition, image quality is at a level that is already very close to business use cases, and it's easier to sell. I mean, I think that's kind of a more like tangential argument. We should be building the right thing anyway, but the main reason is it's just a foundation. And also when you think of video generation, I don't believe video generation will happen through text to video directly because it's too costly, it's too time consuming to generate video. I really think what the right user experience is, you first get the image right, you get the vibe and the theme and like kind of characters right, and then you animate them. So it's going to be text to image, and then text and image to video. So it's coming, video and 3D, they're all coming, but we're starting from the foundation, which is image in our opinion.
Question? Oh.
Yeah, hi. So when you're on ChatGPT or use DALL-E, there's always like censorship, whereas when you use it just straight off your GPU, you could pretty much do anything. Where do you draw that line on what people can and can't generate on your platform?
Actually, there's a funny story here, which is there is a new open source model that was released maybe 2 weeks ago. And on Reddit, people noticed that this model generates a lot of cat images that hold a sign that says maybe not safe. That is Ideogram's kind of fat cat that a lot of our users hate. So we actually do filter a lot of images, and we show a cat instead. And these guys, basically, they were scraping Ideogram. It's not the right thing to do according to our terms of service. But then they didn't notice that there are so many cats. And so they kind of memorized the cat. So they have a proof that they trained on Ideogram images.
So like maps, I know historically maps would put fake streets in there. You put fake cats.
We should actually think about how to use this as a way of watermarking our images in an invisible way. But we, I mean, I guess different companies at different sizes have different tolerance for risk, and generally startups are disruptors, so we can definitely do things differently from OpenAI. Our view is we don't own the images, and it is basically a platform that you come in and use, and sort of you bring your own prompt, and we don't restrict your rights to use the images, but then you gotta be consulting with your own lawyers if you wanna use them commercially. So that's kind of our position right now, and that kind of changes the way we restrict imagery and the constraints, yeah.
We'll take one last question. I think Mohammed, will you be here after to answer more questions?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, cool. So one more question from an audience. I think there's one right there.
Yes.
Oh,
Hello,
okay,
good
oops.
evening. Thank you for this. Is interesting. I was wondering, we spoke about technical hires and all. I was wondering to ask, are you guys, have you thought about more business and product side of the team, and then are you hiring a chief of staff?
Right, now that we're talking about hiring so much, I think Tristan is also in the room. Tristan, are you? Yeah, so I mean, if you're interested in discussing positions at Ideogram, come chat to Tristan or I. in the after party. We do have we are 15. We have a designer, and we have a general operations person in addition to a talent partner. So it's like 3 out of 15 are cross-functional roles. Product per se, we're not hiring product manager yet. I guess the thinking is we are a vertically integrated company that develops the product, user experience, and the model. And we do think developing all of these in tandem will give us a differentiation in that when we think about this new user experience around graphics design, somehow we need to retrain the model to let users control the position of text, the color of text, and the composition. And that is really integrated into the user interface as well. I guess we think we just should all roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty and do whatever is needed to make that possible. And so we're less interested in kind of like the typical definition of roles at tech companies and more interested in interesting backgrounds, creative background, engineering background, and kind of figuring out how to make this new user experience work.
Cool. Thank you. Can I get a round of applause from Mohammad, please?
Okay.